Okay, I think at 6 o'clock we will start the meeting. If you have difficulty with your sound, please look at the volume of your laptop or your computer. And if you're struggling with the internet, remember that this session will be recorded, so you can always go back and actually look at the recording if there is a need be. And as it is, I'm going to move fairly quickly through quite a bit of material. It's always a good idea to actually go back and just review it again as you progress through your assignment. And remember, we will have a similar session for each of the chapters in your research report. Okay, so this is the first session. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just give you a brief overview of the changes in the module in case you haven't been on this module before, or if you have the old module information. I'm going to give a brief orientation regarding the learner guidelines, key success factors, some background on the research process steps, and the report layout. And very important is finding and refining a topic if you haven't got one yet. And then we will deal a little bit more in depth with particular Chapter 1. Just for information, 2016 module was quite a bit different from what it is in 2017. So please make sure that you've got the newest, the second semester 2017 learner guideline, so that you are sure when you actually, reference the learner guideline, that you actually have the most recent copy of that. The reason for emphasizing the change in module is the fact that there is quite a bit of change. So don't talk to your friends about the 2016 version maybe that they did. Please go and look on the e-learning site and in the learner guideline to see how much different it is from the old version. For instance, it is now a semester module, as you know, because you are now in the second semester. There is a page limitation, 50 pages for the body of the report. What we mean by the body of the report is that the 50 pages does not include issues like the cover page, table of content, list of figures, and the executive summary, etc. It also does not include the reference list at the back or the appendices. And now we are looking at 5 chapters instead of 6 chapters, and there you see them. We will discuss that more in detail as we progress. Please note, I've got here 30 October, but I actually think the month has got 31 days, just make sure. But also what you need to do is actually consider that you have very little time to actually do it. I'm saying here 4 months to do 5 chapters, but that is only true if you actually started on the 1st of July. Since we are already on the 2nd of August, what it means is that you've got now 3 months in which to do 5 chapters. And if you try counting the weeks like I did, you will see that you've got about 13 weeks until you have to hand in the final report. And if you divide that through 5 chapters, it means that you've got a little bit more than 2 weeks per chapter. And you have to allocate some time for the actual field research, which can be quite time intensive. So you can see this is a crunch. it is really very, very important to do the time management and to start today, not to leave it until the weekend or next week or whatever. You don't have that time to spend. Okay, and remember, when you actually submit, as always, it must be before 3 p.m., which means you must actually submit the morning, because the afternoon everybody tries submitting and the servers get very busy, and if you submit late, you will be penalized. Okay, Genevieve says 30 October is correct. So I'm so glad I got that one correct. Okay, so let's just quickly look at the learner guideline. As always, with all the learner guidelines, your section A actually gives you a bit orientation regarding the module. And the specific objective of AMRR402 is to do an actual research report. You plan it, but you also do the physical field research, and then you have to write up the report consisting of the 5 chapters. Again, the 4 months is only valid if you started the 1st of July. In this regard, you have about 2 weeks, slightly more than 2 weeks per chapter, including the field research. So very important that you actually then start as soon as possible. As it is a postgraduate module and basically the cherry on top of the cupcake, that is the honors degree, you are expected to exercise considerable independence in your studies. You now have to prove that what you've learned up to now in both your graduate degree and so far in the honors degree, you can actually apply that. As part of the independence and self-responsibility, you have to actually really use the material available. It's very depressing to mark assignments and to see that people did not even go through the learner guidelines. Section B deals specifically with the report and all of the chapters. So please read section B more than once and make sure that you go through it as you progress through the various chapters. For instance, on page 6 you will find, number 6 in section B, you will find the milestones. That is by page 15. Number 7 will be the outline of the final report, including the title page layout. Chapter by chapter discussion you will find from pages 18 to 41, and note that each of the chapters actually give you some evaluation criteria so that you can make sure that you actually meet the criteria specific for this report, specific per chapter, and then there's actually no reason why you cannot progress very successfully through this module. It is still your responsibility to take note of the constraints, as in the 50 pages for the body of the report, as given on page 42, and the submission requirements. There's actually some suggestion on what you should look at in terms of number of pages per chapter, given on page 17, and it also spells out the numbering of the report pages. You will see that the initial part of the report should be in Roman numericals, while the body of the report is in your normal numbering format. Please note that. List of references, you have to use the IMM Harvard guidelines. And the format and the approach to the actual list of references, there on page 42, you actually have an example of what it should look like. It is your responsibility, and this I feel very strongly about, because you wouldn't believe how many people actually fail their reports just because they do not pay attention to the negative marking. The negative marking looks at the quality of the report, at the layout, as well as the referencing and the citations in the text. So study the plagiarism policy of IMM. Study the IMM version of the Harvard Guidelines and use only that version for the citations in the text and the reference list. I emphasize that because Harvard referencing is a fairly general sort of a reference to a type of referencing, but every college actually customizes it to the version that they would like to use. So no, it's not okay for you to download Harvard references from the internet. IMM went to considerable effort to really spell out in the Harvard guidelines, referencing guidelines, on how you should go about referencing in the text as well as in the reference list. Let's look at the rules of the research game. Research is application of everything that you've learned up to now, and whether this is business research or marketing research, the fact is that if you do not understand the research steps and the process, you will not pass this module. So it is something that you have to understand and then actually implement and execute to prove that you actually know how to do research, and that is what this module is about. So first of all, you need a business case or a marketing case to show why the research is necessary. One never does research just because it's an area of interest. You actually do it to find out more about specific marketing issues. And if you find out more about those issues, one can then take better quality decisions in future regarding that. So you need to have a very open mind and an inquisitive mind and ask the why, where, how, when, who questions. And not just ask the questions, but find the answers to that. And where you cannot find the answers, that is actually the focus of your research, so that you can then gather information to better understand that part. You have to be able to take constructive feedback. If you are in a class or you're asking on a forum about issues that you're struggling with, remember that we are talking about the actual issues so that we can learn how to do it better. Time management. Please, again, time management, very important. Based on the feedback from examiners, the key success factors to pass this module is to study and follow the learner guideline. So easy. All of that is provided to you. There is also classes available in all of the main centers that you can actually then discuss and get some assistance if necessary. Even if you cannot do that due to work or other distance geographical issues, please attend to online sessions as you are doing tonight, and I'm very glad to see the attendance here. And if you cannot attend the online session live, you can always view the recordings. This session is being recorded, And when it's done, it will be posted on e-learning site, and you can actually go through it again and again and again as often as you need to do that particular chapter properly. This is not a theoretical module. This is an applied module where you have to do the actual data collection. And the report must actually collect data this semester. You cannot use old data that was collected 6 months, 2 years ago. And it's not a tabletop study either. You actually have to go out and do surveys and interviews, etc., so that you can do the actual data gathering and actually analyze it. Why is that important? I know that in the company you may not be required to do the actual research yourself. You may have an agency that does that. But if you do not know how to do research, how can you actually write a research proposal for the research company or department? How can you actually evaluate their methodology? How can you actually evaluate their results? So, first of all, you need to be able to do the research process steps yourself. Also, based on feedback from the examiners, is the literature review must show that you have read in depth about the topic and the themes. It must not, the literature, just cover the basic and superficial issues, just, give the all definitions and the old theory from handbooks and stuff like that. You have to show that you can actually do a little bit of in-depth reading and comparison between the views of various authors. In chapter 1, but also in the literature review, you may run across models that you can use to do the marketing review, the marketing audit, but you have to integrate those models fully. Just to put them there is not good enough. You will not get the marks. It's all about application, using the models as tools to actually understand the topic and the themes from that in more depth. You have to motivate your choices of models and the use and placement of the models. Why is this particular model suitable to use in your particular research for your specific topic? It is also very important to maintain the golden thread clearly. There must be a clear link between what you are doing in chapter 1 with the problem statement, the research objectives, what you read in the literature review, chapter 2, what you actually incorporated into your research design, chapter 3, and then in the end, the results, chapter 4. And it's astonishing that people can lose the focus within that 50 pages of the report. And too bad, if there is no clear line and link between the objectives, your chapter 1 and your chapter 4 and 5, obviously your research process is not suitable. You have to be able, in chapter 5, to give the recommendations coming from your specific results and findings to the actual research problem as given in chapter 1. So 2 essential elements in this marketing research module. In this module, you need to show that you have a clear understanding of the marketing problem. And please keep in mind that you've got 2 weeks per chapter and to do the field research. So it's very necessary that the marketing problem you pick to actually do the research on must be doable in this very tight time frame. If you try to research too many issues or too big an issue in this very limited time, all of this will lead to is failure for you, because you will not be able to cover it in proper depth. So it's very important. Rather pick a limited scope that you can do in proper depth in this time than to try to do too much. And no, you cannot resolve all the company's marketing problems in this time frame. You also have to prove that you can correctly successfully execute the research process steps. And that is shown in each of the chapters as you go through the process steps, which we will discuss for each chapter as we go along. Research tries to understand the underlying issues better, so that your future decisions about those issues are based on better information. We all know that if you have solid information on which to base decisions, the quality of the decisions are that much better. So you are not trying to prescribe to the company or to the marketing section what they should do. You are trying to find out what is working and what is not working. You are also not providing solutions. If you've done proper research, you will be able to give valuable recommendations at the end of the research that they can use in future to improve the process or to improve the strategy or whatever may be your topic. You have so many resources and applicable material available. Your learner guideline, please, again, not 2016 or 2015's guidelines, this semester's guidelines. We are doing webinars for every chapter. This is the first one. In about 2 weeks, we will be doing chapter 2 and so on and so on. And these webinars, as I already said, are being recorded so you can look at them again and again. You have all your research and marketing and strategy books that you've had up until now. So that's what you are using. Other resources on your e-learning site, you've got the PACER guidelines on how quickly you should move through the module. But as I said, remember, you've got less than 13 weeks left for 5 of these chapters plus your field research. You've got the AMRR database, inside database, where you can find academic articles. You've got the strategic marketing magazines and so much more that you can use to assist you. So let us look at the research process as well as the report structure and flow. The first chapter is the problem and context, the problem statement, objectives, and theoretical considerations. And we use this particular chapter to build the case, to show that it's necessary to do the research. The literature review, chapter 2, is also part of that, because chapter 1 deals specifically with the company issues. How these problems or marketing issues manifest, how you can see the symptoms that there is room for improvement. Chapter 2 actually helps us to see how other researchers did similar studies, how they went about it, and what they found to be key factors in this case. So both chapter 1 and 2 build the business case for the research. And based on that, the issues that we identified in chapter 1 and in chapter 2, the key issues that we saw from other studies, we can then decide design a field research methodology project that you have to actually execute. This design, the research design and methodology, is absolutely based on the research objectives that you drew up in Chapter 1. So you can see Chapter 1 is very important because the key issues that you identified in Chapter 1 will lead you to understand what you should be reading and writing about in the literature review. And it is the base, the foundation of your research methodology and design. And if you did this part properly, then in your results in Chapter 4, you will be able to answer those research objectives that you set in Chapter 1. And the final conclusions and recommendations will then help you answer your problem statement that you made in Chapter 1. So you can see here the clear way that each of these chapters build on each other, and the fact that you need consistent focus in each of that, and that is what we refer to as the golden thread. So note how they build on each other. You cannot say certain things in Chapter 1 and then study other material in Chapter 2 and do a research design that's not linked very clearly to the problem statement and research objectives in Chapter 1. If there is no golden thread between these first 3 chapters, you will find that the results you get will not actually answer the research objectives or the problem statement, and the conclusions and recommendations will not be valid. If you are still struggling to find a topic or to refine the topic, you need to really spend time, intensive time with it again, based on the very tight time frame. You can, for instance, read strategic marketing magazines on e-learning and just look at the topics of the articles and see if there is something that will be applicable in your marketing department or that would be of value for them. Consider recent events in the company. Did you maybe launch a new product that was not so successful? If you want to, you can actually also look at your practicum module, if you've already done that, and see if there is something that you can use as a topic. Discuss those potential topics with your manager, because you will need the management buy-in and the approval to be able to do the field research. For instance, interview customers from the company or interview people in the company, etc. If you are not currently working in marketing, or if you're currently not employed, you can always find a small business or a franchise near you and offer to do marketing research on their behalf. They often do not have the skills or the time or the budget to do it, and they are always very appreciative of assistance like that. For instance, you can do customer surveys, customer satisfaction needs, buying patterns, etc., social media preferences for these customers, for the small business, etc. But be careful. Do not sell yourself as a consultant or angle for a job there. Just treat it as if you are a student, which you are. If you do it very well, yes, maybe you can have a future reference from that particular company. But for that instance, you are a student only. When you have an idea of what you want to do, but you're actually struggling to narrow it down to a doable scope, this sort of funnel is very valuable. You just fill in your own information. The example I have here is, of course, sales and marketing. Area of interest may be market growth in a niche market. And I'm getting more specific as you go through the funnel, adding more detail, and in that process you are actually getting a more specific scope. Say for instance we're saying growing market share in organic foodstuffs. And then your problem context will actually discuss what are the general problems with market growth in organic foodstuffs. More specific will be then issues like using social media. So you can see I'm adding and adding and adding more detail and refining the scope of this particular topic. In the problem review, you are expected to do a market audit then, so that you can actually see what is the company doing versus what the models or the theory is suggesting. Read up on marketing audits, because that is what you are doing in the problem review. Very condensed, but still. If you've done the practicum module, that is basically what you did in your first set of analyses. But again, remember your limited pages. You have to pick your models very carefully and then very concisely do the audit. For instance, in this case, what are the barriers and bottlenecks to growing sales in a niche market? Because organic foodstuffs are niche markets. And then the social media. And maybe you need to look at to what extent the company is ready to actually engage on social media, and to how they are actually comparing to their competitors in this regard, etc., etc. From that should flow a very specific research statement that spells out the problem statement that spells out exactly what will be included in the research. The problem statement or research statement is usually a standalone sentence. It is not part of a paragraph or a whole piece of prose. It is a standalone sentence flowing from the problem review that spells out the key concepts that you will be looking at in your research. The research objectives are little action plans that then actually cover the key concepts in each of your, in the problem statement, so that at the end of the research, your information that you get for each of the objectives help you to answer these objectives, and in turn it feeds up and it answers the research or the problem statement. Just a quick go through in the chapter layout. You can see there I've got the chapter number and I've got the title of the chapter. Please give it both in the table of content and in the text as well. You can see all my headings and subheadings are numbered, and the text report, the text formatting for this report is Arial 12. Not Arial 11, not Calibri 12, not Romans 12, Arial 12, and the spacing is 1.5. Not single, not 1.15, 1.5. And the text is justified. If you don't know what that means, it means that both of your margins are squared off. If you don't know how to do it, go to your text formatting button in Windows or ask somebody to go and show you. But this is part of the quality that you need to pay attention for to avoid negative marking. Okay, every chapter starts with the introduction and ends with a summary. And it's very important, the numbering of the subheadings and proper subheadings. Problem in context. The introduction. Let's just quickly talk about the introduction. It just gives you, it's a paragraph or two that gives you a brief introduction to the topic and tells you what the rest of the chapter actually covers in this regard. The problem context, general background on an industry and company level, a little bit, discussion of the symptoms that the marketing strategy is not meeting its strategic goals. Remember again, don't try and evaluate the total marketing strategy of the company or the department. Pick a doable slice from that. So that is what it is all about, and as marketing people you should already know enough of your industry and company so that you can do the introduction, and then you need to focus what is the symptoms relevant to your particular topic. Problem review. This is where we actually do the mini marketing audit on those issues. You benchmark against one or two suitable models. Not just the old models because you know the models. You have to look at the model that is relevant to your particular topic, that will help you really go into more depth about the actual issues. Problem statement, we've spoken about that. Based on what you found in the problem review, you should be able to formulate a problem statement. And the formulation of that problem statement or research statement is actually quite challenging because you really have to think about how do I word this particular sentence so that I include the crucial concepts that I'm going to research. And as we said, your research objectives flow from the problem statement. So these two are very closely related and linked. Okay, let's look at the problem in context, particularly for growing the market share in a niche market. Just as an example, you have to pick your own topic and do that. It's very important to look at the style of writing and the approach for the problem in context. And remember, a problem in context is general background and orientation so that the reader and the examiner understand why you decided on this. So the style of writing and the approach is unbiased, non-judgmental presentation of the facts evolving in the company and refers to the issues raised in your topic or your management dilemma. Do not make conclusions or start making recommendations. You are still building your business case to show why you are researching this. So you need to keep an open mind. And if you use information from other sources, remember to give the citations in the text and actually give the references in the reference list. So can you write a problem in context for your topic? You're looking at about 1.5 to 2 pages. Remember, you're sitting with page constraints. And the progress, the logical flow, you're moving from general to specific. So maybe I'm writing 1 or 2 paragraphs just to give an idea about the industry and the marketplace in which this is playing out. Recent company background, again, don't go back to 1940 on this. You need to relevant recent company background. For instance, say they've had to restructure, or they've entered a new market, or they expanded their product range, or whatever. That is the type of thing that you're looking at. Recent marketing department background and activities applicable to the topic. Don't discuss stuff that's not applicable to the topic. This is like writing a storybook where you lead the reader down a path so that in the end they understand where you are going with this. So this is then the symptoms of the marketing problem, 3/4 to 1 page. Very important, those symptoms are just issues that show that the current approach is not working, or the current issues are, impeding the company's ability to meet their strategic goals in terms of marketing. You need to read the problem context that you've written again very carefully, and then identify the key marketing problem. It's like going to the doctor with a headache. You have specific symptoms, but it comes back usually to one major issue, and that is what you need to think about. What is the key marketing problem? If you read your problem in context, have you mentioned the key symptoms to show that there is a marketing problem? And have you used sources in the section that you need to cite and acknowledge? Remember, plagiarism comes back and bite you. Okay, so remember the problem context, background, general background. Now you need to go deeper into those symptoms. Highlight constructs or themes in the context that's relevant to the topic or the management dilemma. And now if you look at the problem review writing style, again factual, using information gained from your mentors, managers, people involved with the actual marketing activities and issues experienced on the floor, and that you then compare to what the theory or the model actually recommends you to do. And between what the company is doing and what the theory actually suggests, you can find the gaps in the information, you can find the barriers and the bottlenecks, and that becomes the focus of your study. But remember, keep the focus. You can't mention stuff in the problem review that you did not introduce in some manner in the problem context already. I don't know whether you've got Cooper and Schindler, but there's a wonderful diagram from that. It's also in the learner guideline, where you can see if you discover the management dilemma, you can talk to managers and study internal documents, etc., so that you get a better feel of what is the actual problem, not just focusing on the symptoms. And that gives you your problem context. Now, if you actually then refine the management problem, you go through the whole process again, but in more depth, where you actually do the marketing audit and then explore what exactly, a marketing strategy and a plan can look wonderful on paper, but if you actually execute it, that's where all the issues pop up. and it's not always recorded anywhere. So that is why it's really, really useful to talk to managers and incumbents to actually understand how they experience it. And that helps you draw up your problem statement and refine your research questions, which you can sort into 2 to 4 research objectives. Again, focus, the golden thread. So if we are talking about general problems, growing the market share in organic foodstuffs, the problem review will then focus specifically where are the bottlenecks and barriers growing sales. First of all in a niche market, and secondly when using social media. Which 1 or 2 models will actually help you in this specific area to do a useful mini marketing audit that will really help you understand what the issues are in this regard. So the choice of models and how you apply it to actually find out more about the underlying issues is very important. Okay. So your problem review overview. You decide on key themes from the problem and context. That focus is then your problem review. Factual analysis and a marketing audit. How are things done currently in the company? And then with the page constraints in mind, about 3 to 4 pages max, you then do the marketing audit. And you have to decide, don't just do it automatically. Will it add any value and in-depth understanding to do external, to do to do internal audit? So where exactly is the focus in this case? You have to find the answers to the what, where, how type questions by talking to incumbents, to managers, and then reflect on the gaps and barriers when you compare that insight into how things are done in the company versus the theory. The purpose of a marketing audit is not to actually criticize particular activities, but rather identify working practices that could be more effective, what other information is needed to make informed decisions, etc. And that is then your focus for the research. Again, a marketing audit is structured survey of an organization's marketing effort. It looks at the way that marketing is planned and managed, and in this case the focus specifically on your topic. What has been done and what else should be considered or be done. What has worked, what information is still needed, and what can still be improved. You do not make recommendations here, you actually analyze to understand better. And that is then the focus of your research. Say for instance, we use this particular segmentation model. Say your topic is about segmentation. In this regard, we talk about the segmentation, say for instance, for a niche market in organic foodstuffs. So again, I only use the parts of the model that is relevant to my topic. If I already have this information, this model is not serving any purpose. But maybe now in this case, the company is already selling organic foodstuffs, they just want to move it onto social media now. Do I understand the people that are using social media to shop for organic foodstuffs? What do I need to do in this regard? What information do I still need to do to actually assist me in this process? Please note, there's a figure number. There's the title of the model or the diagram or whatever you may have there, plus a source with the correct citation formatting. So, for instance, I can use this model to see how the company is currently doing segmentation. Is this sufficient if I, say, for instance, want to go online or I want to do social media? Who is the new target market and what do we know about them? Is this relevant to your topic? If not, you don't use it. How will the current positioning look like? Will it have to change and how? Again, this is just an example of a model. If it's not relevant to your topic, you need to find relevant models. This is a model I like very much because it encompasses so much about customer satisfaction. And very important, what I like about that is you see all the various components in the model, but you also see the lines connecting them, showing you the dynamics between the different components. But again, maybe you need only one or two components in this model, then that is the only components you discuss. Say for instance here you've got the customer satisfaction. And that depends on your perceived overall quality, customer expectations, and the perceived value. And you can see the sub variables in each case listed here. And you can actually check there for customer complaints, to what extent are you meeting these requirements customer needs. And that leads to your customer loyalty. You will agree with me, this is a very interesting model, but only if customer satisfaction is part of your topic. Coming back to our example, current market for organic foodstuffs. What are the competitors doing? What are the current trends in organic foodstuff? What is the company selling in this regard? What are the consumption and turnover patterns? And you can see it's factual issues that I can pick up from data that the company most likely have. Current marketing approach to organic foodstuffs. What communication channels is the marketing department using currently? How well is it working? Are there bottlenecks and barriers in the process? How ready is the company, for instance, to use or to start using social media? Do they have people that can actually attend to the social media comments, etc., etc.? Benchmarking, the marketing audit, again, we've spoken about this. What exactly is the company doing? What does the model recommend? And then the gaps in how the things are doing, etc., etc., should lead to new insight into the topic, and you can then focus or refine your topic even better. Problem context, again, golden thread. You've got the problem context. You're going into more specific detail with the problem review, and that should logically lead to your problem statement. One single line, not longer than one single sentence, not longer than 2 lines, that spells out the scope of your research. When you write the problem statement, be careful of using words like impact and influence. One cannot measure that easily because there's so many variables in any marketing situation. How can you isolate, say for instance, the impact of price increases, whatever? So keep it doable. Rather talk about, say, for instance, the role. then you don't need to measure impact or influence. Research purpose, remember, it's to understand better. It's not to provide solutions or prescribe what to do. Problem statement, standalone sentence, very specific scope, and not less than 2 lines long. It's usually something like 15 to 17 words. Okay, example. For this specific example that we've been using, I can say, for instance, the use of social media as a marketing channel is essential in growing the market share of organic foodstuffs. If you look at the format of this problem statement, I can argue that. People can argue that. And actually the answer is not very important. I just must make a statement that at the end of the research, I can say this was true or it was not true. If it's not true, I've also learned something. So it's always valuable, never mind the actual answer, but I must have it in a format where I have the key issues that I'm intending to look at, and I can answer it at the end of the research. So the concepts in this regard is the use of social media, the growing of the market share, and very specific of organic foodstuffs. So you can see there are my 3 key factors that I will be researching and gathering information about in the research. So that is my golden thread in that particular case. Now, if I have to use that particular problem statement to draw up research objectives. Research objectives are very specific elements in research as they drive the research in terms of the data that I'm going to gather. Okay, so they are little action plans. My chapter 3, where I draw up the design, will be based on these research objectives. They need to be achievable within the constraints of time and resources. So for instance, I need to consider, can I do this field research in a question of 1 or 2 weeks that I can gather the data? So I must keep them doable. Will I have access to my sample population? Who is my sample population? Is it customers? Is it internal company people? Can I actually get that information from them in that specific area? Is it achievable, realistic, and timely? Can I measure that? Comes back to the influence and impact that we spoke about. So my problem statement directly links to my research objectives. So let's look at this use of social media as marketing business channel, essential growing the market share. So potential research objectives could be, and look at the format, starts with to, and it gives me a verb because it's an action plan. To ascertain the profile of the target market. To research where they currently get their information about organic foodstuff. To determine their use of social media and preferred platforms. To determine type of information they would like to receive. Now you can see how that covers the key issues in my problem statement. If I get the information from that, I should be able to answer that particular statement. Again, if I look at the doability, ascertain the profile of the target market. What questions must I ask? Who is my sample population? How am I going to access that sample? And what tool am I going to use to gather the data? And that you can ask for each of the objectives, and there you have the base of your preliminary research design, and you can quite quickly see whether you will be able to do this in this very limited time frame. The research objectives are important because it helps me decide what to read for literature review in Chapter 2, what approach and tools to use in Chapter 3, the research design, what questions I must ask in my survey and interview, so that I make sure that I gather the correct data in the end to answer my problem statement. I like students to do 1.6, which is not in the original layout, which is a brief overview of the research design. So it's optional, but I find it very handy because it helps you check the doability of the research objectives. Value of the research, keep it realistic. You are not solving the problems of the world or the country or the company even. This is just an exercise to teach you how to do research and to prove that you can actually follow the process steps. So the value is to the company to help them understand a specific marketing issue a little bit better so that their future decisions can improve in quality. Limitations and delimitations. Limitations, you are still planning. So the moment you actually see there are barriers to you doing the research properly, you can still change it. So there should at this point really not be limitations. Otherwise, you are shooting yourself in the foot by already trying to do something that's not possible. Delimitations is actually what is included in the research and what is not. And then finally, the chapter summary, where you just give a brief overview and link to what you will be doing in the next chapter. Homework. In 2 weeks' time, you need to have already a chapter 1. Otherwise, you are falling behind schedule. The start of your report, which is a title page. That's very specific for research, so please go and look at it in the learner guideline. Table of content, list of figures and tables, because you are doing the marketing audit, so you will have at least 1 or 2 model diagrams. Introduction to the chapter. Problem context, please number it correctly. Problem review, potential problem statement, and the research objectives. Once you have these, it's actually easy to finish the rest of the chapter. So really try and do that as soon as possible. You don't have time to actually wait to start. Technical requirements, that is where you can lose your 5 marks. Title page, table of content, list of tables and figures, properly numbered headings, text formatting, page numbers. Remember the Roman numericals for the first pages. Okay. And you will already have a reference list and citations in the text. Citations, if you don't do it correctly or you don't give it and acknowledge information that you've used from other sources, -5. List of references not done correctly, -10. So a lot of marks to lose if you've already worked so hard. Thank you very much for attending. Is there any questions that you will want to ask me? I can see 2 students typing, so I'm waiting. Yes, the workshop scheduled for this week specifically will cover the same material, but you will now actually have the ability to discuss with the presenter maybe ideas that you have for the topic, and if you're struggling to refine the topic or you're struggling with any of the components of the chapter, this is the time and place to do it. While this webinar covers the same information, it is always nice to be able to discuss it with your classmates as well, to hear how they are doing it, what are they doing as topic. One learns from each other in a group environment and with a presenter available. Any other questions? You will also find that I actually covered quite a lot of material in this hour, slightly more than an hour. And there's this interesting thing called short-term memory. One forgets very quickly the content and the ideas given in a presentation like that. If you then actually go to the workshop, it is a refresher and you remember it better. Anybody else? Okay, I see a number of questions coming. It will be recorded and it will be on the e-learning site. So yes, you will be able to access it on e-learning. Copy of this presentation. If you attend the class, you will get a very similar slideshow to this. You are actually, there's no tutors on this module. That is where the independent working comes from. But if you attend a class, you will be able to ask your presenter in the class to go through that. Okay, as Genevieve says, the session are being recorded and it will be posted on e-learning within 2-3 days. I'm sorry. Expert blogs. The problem with internet is that it's not peer reviewed. What does it mean? It means that anybody can write something there and nobody's checking to what extent they are interpreting the material correctly or that they did the research properly. It is always preferable that you use at least 60% of your resources should be from academic articles. For your chapter 1, you can use company information, you can use industry information, you can use relevant material that will give you a bit of background. So if I'm talking about 60% academic articles, it's more for your literature review. But the problem is that you cannot depend on the internet for quality research material. So that's why you've got about 40% of your sources left that you can use handbooks for. Handbooks, because they're old, The material in a handbook, never mind if it's this year's handbook, the material is still a couple of years old, while your academic articles on Emerald Insight, you can get yesterday's articles on it. And don't forget your strategic management magazines. It is very difficult, Walter, to do a general topic without using a company, especially in this time frame. You've got 2 weeks per chapter. It is always easier to actually find a little company for which you can do research. A general topic tends to grow, the scope gets too wide and you don't have proper access to the factual issues that you need in chapter 1. So I would strongly recommend that you rather use a company and do that. It is, I understand it's sometimes difficult, but you are walking into other issues with a general topic. You have to provide a business case on why you do the research. The problem is if you use the company as a case study, you must be very careful in research. A case study is not like a strategy. We are not doing case studies that way. In research, case study refers to a methodology that is very time intensive and you don't have the time to do a case study now. The fact that you are using or basing your research just on one company does not make it a case study for research. You must distinguish between how a case study is used in strategy. Just to give you an example of, company information that you are now asked questions about versus case study in research. In research, case study is a methodology that you do not have the time to do. Okay? And to try and do the whole company is as problematic because you have very limited time. 2 weeks for chapter 1, 2 weeks for chapter 2, 2 weeks for chapter 3, less than 2 weeks for the actual field research, or you will not finish on time. So that is why I emphasize a doable scope. Pick something like a survey or a customer satisfaction or, this type of social media intervention, etc., that you can actually do in this very limited time frame. You can refer to it if it's sensitive. You can give the company another name, or you can just refer to bank number 8 or whatever, bank number B or C, whatever. We understand that sometimes it is sensitive to give the company name. That's not an issue. And if the company is very sensitive about the information, IMM also have confidentiality letters that they're willing to sign, which means that only the examiners will see the information. That information will never see the light of day otherwise. We want to see whether you can do the process steps. We are not that interested in you doing, a very big topic. Your contribution is the fact that you can actually do research. It is not like a master's degree or a doctoral degree where you are expected to add new information to the body of knowledge. I'm not sure what you are talking about, the sample sizes. If you intend to do inferential statistics, you need a sample size of more than 30 to 40 responses. And for a survey, that means you have to times 4 send out surveys to that. If you do qualitative interviews, focus groups, your sample size is relatively small, but for now you need to think about doability. Can you really send out that many surveys and get that size? Or are you going to do descriptive statistics where you only look at trends? Be aware that this is a mini dissertation. You've got 2 weeks per chapter. That's where the doability comes in. And even if you do the inferential statistics, if you're good with that and you get a nice enough sample size, you still have to explain what those statistics actually mean. No, you cannot use a fictional company. As I said, you can name the company somebody else. You can take an existing company. Say, for instance, what was asked earlier, if you have an actual bank, you can give the bank another name. Or if you've got a car manufacturer or retail, a shop or whatever, you can give it another name, but you can't use a fictional. This is applied research. You actually have to use an existing company and base your research on an actual problem that they're experiencing. You will have to do the field research where you have the survey or the interview from actual people, and you have to analyze and then report that. Any more questions? Walter, does that answer your question? I'm glad. I hope you find a real company where you can do research on. If you look earlier in the discussion, I said you can find a little franchise, and just do a customer survey for them. Yeah, it is not rocket science. Research is not rocket science, but it's time consuming. And this is where this catches up with you. You've got 3 months for 5 chapters, and you need to do a lot of work in that period. I don't know what you mean about descriptive statistics and look at trends. You have to gather the data yourself. So, for instance, you are doing a customer survey for your company or for a little franchise. Depending on their answers on the actual survey that you will be conducting, you cannot use just general information from the internet. You have to gather that data, and you will actually have to have those surveys in possession so that you can show that you've done it. Then you will do descriptive statistics on it by doing just trend analysis to show that specific information relevant to that specific topic from the data that you gathered. But yes, descriptive statistics is like you see on the internet, But in this case, you need to gather the data yourself and then analyze it and give it. Again, I said earlier, we found in this previous semester people that did not do the actual field research, and we found people that used old data or data from the internet and give it through as their own data that they gathered. That is not sufficient. You have to prove that you can actually do the various steps in the research process properly. Means that you have to design and develop a survey or an interview schedule, and you actually have to execute it, analyze it, and report it. Okay, I see Annelies is still typing. Yes, in your annexures, you have to give the questionnaire, but you only report the actual results in the report itself. You can give it in the annexures. What you need to remember is that since you have this 50-page constraint, you cannot put all kinds of other things in the annexes, appendices. You can only put the actual research tools and the cover letter. Okay. Anything else, Walter? I think that is the last question. Again, I'm just a presenter and I have classes on Saturdays, as in the various other instances. You can send Genevieve any questions and we will try to address it. But again, you have the slideshow, you have the learner guideline, and you've got the PACER on e-learning site, you've got the Harvard guidelines. Actually, you should have quite a lot of that available to you. And again, I'm here in about 2 weeks' time with another chapter. So you really need to finish this first chapter very quickly. Good. You need to finish the chapter in 2 weeks' time. 2 weeks' time, we talk about the next chapter. Thank you very much for your attendance. I enjoyed talking to you and I hope you progress very well. But remember, you've got many resources, including your learner guidelines, and you can see the recording of this. And if you're close to one of the support centers, go and attend a class. It's always helpful to get more exposure on this. Good. There, Genevieve tells you there is a group forum in place where you can actually ask questions.